welcome back. So here is the test I have written where we can currently add apples, and then if we add more apples, an additional call to the add method, then we end up with 2 Apple shopping cart items. And as per the last video, we now want to change this behavior. Alright, how do we go about this? I feel that this particular test, when it is going to be changed to throw a product already in cart exception, this test here is in the wrong place. Okay, so I'm just cutting it out of here. So that was at the end of add. The next test here is add. See there, add. And then add. Where's the first add test? Here we go, add, and then throw missing product exception. Add, and then invalid quantity exception. So you can sort of see how, as part of the story, as part of the narrative of teasing out the behavior, one of the first things we do, as we have learned from the thorns and the gold, and one of the first things we will do is to deal with exception situations, exception scenarios. So this is what we've got here. So I'm going to paste it in here after this invalid quantity exception, because the next test is part of the gold. Here we go. We can add apples, bananas, and cantaloupes, and we actually end up with these products in the shopping cart, and here we end up with an invalid quantity exception. So we've got another exception scenario now where we end up with duplicate products. I'm going to paste that here. Alright, moving some of the white space. However, the particular description isn't great and isn't really reflective of how we want our shopping cart to behave. So this is how it currently behaves. When we've got apples in the cart and we call add with more apples, then we have 2 apple items in the cart. Then having 2 apple items in the cart is not anything that we still want. Then what? Then we want to throw product already in cart exception. Alright, this looks really good. So given have apples in cart, when call add with more apples, then throw product already in cart exception. Okay, good. So here we're creating our shopping cart, that's fine, and we're adding the first lot of apples to our empty shopping cart instance. That is fine as well. However, the second add with more apples, now 7 apples, this ought to fail. And it ought to fail along the lines of what we have up here, where we use this particular structure of having a delegate to add, and then use our fluent assertions with the should and throw it exactly to verify and assert that the correct exception was thrown. We want to do something along the same lines where we kind of say, hey, action add that's equal to, so it goes to cart dot add, and here we want this to be apple. Going to make it 7 so kind of keep it consistent what we had before. Alright, so that's great. And then next we want to kind of go, add dot should throw. I'm going to go with the exactly, and here we want to have product already in cart. That's our exception. Alright, so this is really what we want to have. The rest there was no longer required. So we create a new shopping cart, we add the first 3 apples, that's fine. Then we add a further 7 apples. Then against that add, we will check that it should throw a product already in cart exception. Alright, this is interesting. So product already in cart is underlined with the red squiggly line. It means that we've got a compilation error here. This is because product already in cart is a type that doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and create it. Here we go, create a new file. Alright, product already in cart being created in a new file. Hold on, I'm just going to navigate there. It's in fact an exception. Alright, and I'm going to make this public. We're going to add something in there a little bit later on. For completeness sake, I'm going to rejig things a little bit. Product already in cart is here at the root, business logic project. I'm going to move it into the exceptions folder. Yes, I do want to do this. And then We've got it over here. I think this is the wrong namespace now. Yeah, we want to change it to folder structure. Great, business logical exceptions. We have fixed the compilation error. We have entirely changed the behavior of the test that we had there before. The precondition, the action, they were both the same, but now we expect a different behavior from our code. Now we want an exception to be thrown. So this test should end up red and fail. All right, and we do have a failing test. It seems kind of funny to be excited about failing tests. However, here it is justified. We have changed our original test where we had apples in the cart, we add more apples, and then that was fine. We ended up with 2 shopping cart items, both full of apples. This will no longer do. We have changed the requirements so that when we now have apples in the cart and we add more apples to the cart, then we throw a product in cart exception, or we want a product in cart exception to be thrown. So we've changed that test. That test is now failing because if we have a look at the message, no product in cart exception was thrown. All right. As your next task, you will get to turn this red failing test green. And remember that as per rule number 3 of the 3 rules of TDD, you ought to do it in the simplest possible way. So write the least amount of code necessary to make this test pass. You get to do that next. See you shortly.